All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sports fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike, and you have now arrived at my train of thought. This train is going to take us all over both the United States and Canada, because we're going to be talking about and previewing the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals. We're talking 4 different teams. We're talking 3 of them are domestic. 2 of them are going to be winning trophies in the next 2 weeks, and 1 was here in this spot last year. And that's where I'm going to start this. I'm going to start this at the most southern point of this video, and that's the Florida Panthers. Florida's run to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2023 is entirely different from the run in 2024. The former run went through the greatest regular season team in NHL history in the Boston Bruins, much laughter was had, a gentleman's sweep against the Toronto Maple Leafs, even more laughter was had, and an actual sweep against the Carolina Hurricanes. And in all 3 cases, they were clearly the underdog. They were the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference when they did this, and they got to the Stanley Cup Finals and got there going through less games per round. The Hurricane series is more so pain on the case of Carolina, considering how close that series really was. It was a sweep, yes, but all 4 games were incredibly close. 2 of them went to overtime, and all of them were 1-goal games. Makachuk was in God mode. Yes, they got gentlemen swept themselves by the Golden Knights, but Vegas was the better team, and Vegas was very much more battle-tested. One of the 3 things I'm really looking at when it comes to these 2 series. I'll talk about the other 2 in a little bit. But with Florida this time, they are clearly battle-tested, and they clearly are here with a point to prove, and a mission to finish the job, if you will. They took care of business in a gentleman's sweep against the Lightning, and then they took care of business against Boston yet again, but this time in 6 games, winning all the games at TD Garden, and that's impressive in itself. And then the conference finals against the President's Trophy winning Rangers, they handled them in 6 games. And in all 3 series, they had to deal with incredible goaltending on the opposite side. Andre Vasilevsky may go to the Hall of Fame, and he was, once upon a time, the best goalie in the world. Then Boston had the best goalie tandem in the world, and they took care of them in 6 games. And then the current best goalie in the world, Igor Shesterkin with the Rangers, is the only reason why that series lasted 6. Florida handled all of them. Their depth and their experience are the reasons why we are here in this situation where the Panthers are back in the Stanley Cup Finals. Matt Tkachuk's been excellent, and Carter Verhaeghe has become a big-time clutch player. Sam Reinhart had a 50-plus goal season. He was great. Sasha Barkov and Aaron Ekblad are 2 homegrown talents who have been amazing in these playoffs. Ekblad's finally healthy, which is great to see. Sergei Bobrovsky has been the linchpin of this, and he's pretty much counteracted all the spectacular goaltending on the opposite side with spectacular goaltending on his front. So great work on their part and all the depth that the Panthers have. They have a job to finish, but can they finish it against the best player in the world? Connor McDavid is dazzling. Watching him play is a joy to watch. The speed, the stick handling, the skill, the goal scoring ability, the passing ability, he's got it all, and has been the best player for the last, let's say, 7 years or so. He's been incredible. You've had some years from Austin Matthews, but generally the best player all the way through has been Connor McDavid. He's been that type time. Leon Draisaitl's in his peer group. He's also a Hart Trophy winner, and he's been amazing as a goal scorer with the passing and the timing and the skill and ability. Not McDavid quite level, but is in the peer group of best players in the world. He's a top 3 to 5 guy in his own right. The best goal scorer on that team is Zach Hyman, who had 50-plus this year. Byron Nugent-Hopkins is a very good player, and Evander Kane is a power forward that each team generally needs. Edmonton has a lot of high-end talent, and Stuart Skinner has held it down in net in these playoffs and has done a very good job on his part. Though the Oilers have underachieved at points, they have looked like a much better, more well-rounded unit with their defense at times in these playoffs. The gentlemen swept the LA Kings. They were just way more talented than LA. They were able to take care of business against Vancouver in a very good 7-game series. And then a Dallas Stars team that's almost as battle-tested as the Panthers have been over the last few years, they ended up winning that series in 6 in what was a really good series with some really good talent on the other side, and another top-tier goalie and Jake Ottinger that they had to deal with and score goals against. Well done on their part. Plus, Connor McDavid in the clinching game made a goal happen. Just incredible, because only Connor McDavid can generally do that. He's like that. So it's, when I think of these two teams, and I think of the NBA Finals as well, it's best player, it's most depth, it's battle testedness. 2 out of these 3 categories, whichever team gets 2 out of 3 takes it. Best player is Connor McDavid. I'd argue the second best player is Leon Draisaitl. And then Florida, I think, has the best depth. I think the Panthers have better depth than the Oilers do. Not that the Oilers are terrible at it. I just think the Panthers are really better at it. The power play and penalty kill thing is going to be vital in this series because Edmonton's power play is absurdly great. And the Panthers have a very good PK. But then there's the battle testedness. And that, I think, is where I put Florida over the top here. I'm going to go Panthers in 6. I think the Panthers overall, they're built for this. They're ready for this. I just think they overall have more depth. And the fact that this is their second time in as many years back in this final, and Edmonton hasn't been back here since 2006, I think that does kind of sort of mean something. And this is only the second time that McDavid and Draisaitl have even gotten to the conference finals. They were there a couple years ago and got mowed down by the Avalanche en route to Colorado's latest cup. But I'm going to take the Panthers in 6. I'm going to take Matt Tkachuk to win the Conn Smythe, and I think it'll be an incredibly entertaining series. Also, I think the goaltending is better with Sergei Bobrovsky. I think the Panthers finally win their first Stanley Cup. And now the train is going to go from Edmonton down to Dallas, where had the Stars won games 6 and 7, Dallas would have been hosting both series, the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals, at different points. Instead, they only got the former. And with the Mavericks, what a difference a year makes. This time last year, we were wondering what went wrong for the Dallas Mavericks. How could trading for Kyrie Irving as the Brooklyn Nets were imploding work out so terribly for the Mavs, where they couldn't play defense at this time last year, but we knew that, and they found a way to go from 4th in the West to 11th in the West. Unfortunately for them, only 10 teams make at minimum the play-in, so they missed the playoffs. They ended up tanking to make sure that the Knicks couldn't get their first-round pick, which allowed them to, after a trade with the Oklahoma City Thunder, get Derek Lively. Quite a thing. More on the Thunder in a second. But when it comes to these Mavericks, these are a far different Mavericks from last year. This trade deadline, they traded for PJ Washington and some other pieces. And suddenly, this team has some better defense, and their role players, other than Luka and Kyrie Irving, have cooked and have done really well, and they know their roles, and they played their roles tremendously well. And the Dallas Mavericks arguably have been the best team in the NBA since the trade deadline. They've been that great. They have really cooked, and they've really made it happen. And this run to the finals is quite impressive. They went through a pretty healthy LA Clipper team, and that's saying something because Clippers in 6 games, so Kawhi Leonard didn't play the latter half of the series. We did see a James Harden and Paul George disaster class of a Game 5. That totally happened. And then they faced the Thunder this year and ended up beating the top seed in the West in 6. The lights were a little too bright for OKC. I think they'll be back. And in the conference finals, the lights were slightly too bright for Minnesota after they just beat the defending champion Nuggets. They got gentlemen swept, and all 3 games were lost in Minnesota by the home team. Not great for the T-Wolves. I think Minnesota could be back, but this might have been their best shot, considering the way the West shook out. Anyway, Dallas has done a tremendous job. Luka Doncic has absolutely carried and has taken souls along the way. Kyrie Irving has helped with the carrying, and Luka looks like he has a real shot to become the best player in the world with 4 more wins. But he's got to get him against a Boston Celtics team who's been the best team pretty much from the word go. This Celtics team has been here before. They've been here a lot, actually. This is their 6th in 8 years when it comes to the career of Jaylen Brown, and 5 and 7 for Jason Tatum when it comes to getting at least to the conference finals. Let's look at these runs. The first 2 were against the Cavs, and LeBron handling business in both of them. The first one was a gentleman's sweep with only Jaylen Brown. The second one, in Tatum's rookie year, they lost in 7. Both series, well, at least the second one was good. They didn't make it in 2019. That's Toronto and Milwaukee's job, and Kawhi Leonard got his ring and brought it to Toronto. In the bubble, they lost to the Heat and were badly outcoached in the process because their exposure was like that. In 21, they didn't make it. Somehow Atlanta did. That was kind of wild, but Atlanta made the conference final, and Giannis ended up getting, well, really Middleton in that Hawks series, and then Giannis went God mode and winning the NBA championship with the Bucks. And then 22, the good news is they got past the East. They got past the Heat and beating them in 7, only to lose to Golden State as the Warriors capped their dynasty with another title. And then last year, they almost got swept by an 8 seed, only to almost reverse sweep an 8 seed in the Miami Heat, only to get blown out by said Heat and lose their third game in Boston in the series and lose to Miami in 7 there. As for this year, well, Boston's had some injury luck. Good, mostly, although Kristaps Porzingis has missed a lot of the last 2 rounds. Boston ended up gentlemen sweeping a Jimmy Butler-less Heat. They ended up gentlemen sweeping a Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen-less Cavaliers team, and they actually swept the Pacers, who lost Tyrese Halliburton halfway through that series. But to be fair to the Celtics, everybody but Orlando that made the playoffs this year had some injury issues in the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee didn't have Giannis at all and lost Damian Lillard for a lot of that series with the Pacers. They were a terrible matchup for Indiana. They would have lost the series, I think, anyway. Then you have the Sixers, who got Joel Embiid back, sure, but he re-aggravated his injury in Game 1 against the Knicks and was never truly right, even though he was excellent in the Knicks series. They just didn't have enough gas. Tobias Harris is still on some milk cartons in the Delaware Valley. It wasn't great on his part. And then there's the Knicks, who basically half their city injured. Like, the Knicks had all of the injuries almost to a lot of their main depth pieces, and probably Stephen A. and probably Spike Lee, really towards the pride element. And then Game 7, as that game was effectively over anyway because of what the Pacers did to them, they lose Jalen Brunson to a broken hand. So, in a sense, it probably doesn't matter which side of the bracket Boston wouldn't have been on. They would have had to deal with an injury-plagued opponent in pretty much every turn. The only exception being the Magic, who were fully healthy. They just weren't fully capable of actually being able to shoot. The Magic are really bad at getting the perimeter shooting. It's just not a great look there. Paul and McCarroll, nice, but they got to get the perimeter shooting ASAP in this offseason. Anyway, back to the Celtics. This Boston team is really good. They have a whole lot of depth. They are going to probably be healthy with Porzingis returning tonight. And Boston is rounding into form. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have played well. Jrue Holiday's played as advertised. Derek White has become, I think, their 4th best player. Porzingis coming back. Al Horford. This is a very good, capable squad in the Boston Celtics. They have the stigma of being close but never being able to finish the job, which is unfortunate on their part, much laughter is had by everyone else. And the Celtics have probably their best shot at winning the title right here and right now. So when I look at these two teams, Dallas and Boston, Luka's the best player. I think we can all agree on that. Luka Doncic is the best player in this series. Sure, the next 2 best players are Tatum and Brown, but Luka's the best player. And you could even argue Kyrie fitting in there at third over Brown or third over Tatum, however you want to see it. Boston, I think, has better depth. I think the Celtics overall have some really good depth. Dallas' depth isn't too bad, but I'll go with Boston's 1 through 7 or 8 over Dallas's 1 through 7 or 8. And then there's battle-testedness. I just talked about the injury road that Boston went through, and it would have been this way no matter what side of the bracket they were on. And then there's Dallas, who went through 3 50-win teams who were generally healthy. And this year, I would have to argue that Dallas has gone through a tougher road. The Western Conference as a whole was nasty, and I think was a more superior conference than the East was. With all that being said, I'm going to go Dallas in 6. I'm going to go with the Mavericks winning tonight. Luka Doncic wins the Finals MVP, the Bill Russell Award, and I think that the Dallas Mavericks get their first championship since 2011. So one more time, I've got the Panthers in 6 games, Matt Tkachuk winning the Conn Smythe. I've got the Mavericks in 6 games, with Luka winning the Bill Russell NBA Finals MVP. So will Edmonton end the Stanley Cup drought? Will the Florida Panthers end their Stanley Cup drought? Will the We Want Boston chants finally meet their end of jinx with the Dallas Mavericks getting a ring? Or will the Boston Celtics end their title drought and win their first since 2008? Post your picks below. You have now reached the final stop of my train of thought.